You're listening to Sweet Bites with Sandra with your host, Sandra Colton-Medici. Tune in every Thursday to satisfy your entrepreneurial sweet tooth. Follow on Instagram at Sweet Bites with Sandra Podcast and Sandra Colton-Medici. You can also join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Sweet Bites with Sandra. Hi, I'm Sandra, and I'd like to invite you to subscribe and listen to my new podcast, Sweet Bites with Sandra. Satisfy your entrepreneurial sweet tooth in each episode, full of digital business tips, inspiring interviews, asides from my entertainment career, and rewards to celebrate your sweet success. Find Sweet Bites with Sandra on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Welcome back to Sweet Bites with Sandra. I am so excited to have with me the wonderfully talented and crossing over many borders, Natalie Hapgood. She is the head of strategy, am I right, at Revelation?
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, well, so you have had a lot of different experiences in your career, from working with artists like Diplo and, just crazy talented people. And now you've transitioned into kind of a whole new field. So can you talk about what you're doing right now in the realm of strategy, content marketing, digital media?
Yeah, I put a lot of thought into what I wanted to do. Music was such a huge part of my life. I spent well over 10, 12 years in the music business. And then I thought about, I loved all parts of it, the creative people that I worked with, the business people, like it's a fantastic industry. And I think of them often, especially now during COVID, people that are in the live entertainment space. So, hopefully we can have that bounce back. But I thought about, what is it specifically that I love in music? And what I really loved was making the music videos and making the content. It was just always like the most creative, the most fun. And then I kind of really liked the intensity of like the production piece of it. There's the budgets, but then when you're on set, then you have to make decisions as to how that's going to go. So I thought, well, let me take that skill that I have, being able to manage these like really big budget music videos and turn that into something that we can make content for brands. And that's when I pivoted to working at Revelation. And that's, we do many things, but one of the key things that I'm involved in is making that content for brands, but it's always rooted in the data and the insights, which is another talent that I garnered in the music business, because you're always looking at your Spotify, Apple dashboards. You want to know exactly, where the music is popping up, who's resonating, who's listening. So I sort of transitioned that skill over as well.
Well, so you are not originally from the US. So how did it feel coming from South Africa? I know everybody probably heard the accent. So how did it feel coming from South Africa? And what were some of the emotions that you had, through that whole experience?
Well, I was probably 23. I mean, it was sort of, part of it is kind of what you did. Like you went to school, you went to college, and then you traveled. So I sort of did that. And I think generally people from South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, they go travel and they'll go for like a year or so, because you're so far away from the rest of the world, especially this was like 20 years ago. It's like when you go, you get your one-way ticket there and then you got to make it happen. So I traveled a little bit around Europe, and then I came to the States, and I was really just looking for adventure. I just wanted to see the world, just be free. It was just so fun. I still have this vivid memory of being on a plane, crossing the ocean, getting ready to land in New York with my Lonely Planet New York book. Probably dating myself here, like terribly, but just like ready for adventure. And it was a typical immigrant story. I knew no one. I had a backpack. I had probably about $500, and I'd secured myself a job upstate at a summer camp being a lifeguard. And I had 2 weeks in the city before I had to report for duty, and I just fell in love with New York City. And it's really been the love of my life. Like I'm still here all these years later.
Well, so did you report to work? Did you go to the lifeguard camp, or did you just?
Yeah. Okay. I did that for the summer, and that was wonderful. Upstate, near Bear Mountain, not near the Catskills. And it was just so wonderful. I met so many amazing people. Got sort of my introduction into like real American culture, because you sort of grow up with it when you're outside of the country. Like there's so much infused in your understanding of American culture, TV, music, film, it's everywhere, right? But then you're in the culture, there's so much more to learn. And I just fell in love with that. And I think New York specifically, the character of New Yorkers, and it was just appealing. It still is.
Yeah. Well, so when you think of kind of that infusion of culture, how do you, as a content strategist and a creator, what do you think is the hardest part of your daily work? Like what is the hardest part?
I think, for my position specifically, it's really looking at what's going to resonate with your viewers or, the people that you want to talk to. So a big part of what I do now is I always am a fan of using the data and the insights. So it takes the guessing game out of it because you're working with clients' money. You don't want to waste that money. It's sort of like, oh, I think this is cool. Let me give that a shot. So you want it to be rooted in something real. And that can be, primary research, so interviews and surveys, etc. And it can also be secondary research, which is, white papers that have been written or surveys that have already been done. There's lots of different ways you can get that info. And then the hardest part is really distilling that into a few key insights that you really feel like are going to resonate. And often I'll sit with my internal team and we'll look at like the options that I've presented to them. And then we'll figure out like, okay, these ones really work. And then we'll go and make the content around that. But that takes a couple of steps. So it's not just the research and the work.
Right.
You get the insights and you get the data. I have to have an opinion as to what I think works, and I have to be able to back it up.
Yeah.
Then I have to get the internal team to buy in, and I have to be flexible to hear their feedback as well. And then once that's done, we have to get the client to buy in, right? So there's like all these steps internally before you can even just do the work.
It sounds like it's a little bit of sales at the same time. I feel like you have to really believe in what you're putting out there, because if you're putting so much of yourself into all of these, steps that you get to from concept to completion, you have to really be behind the product. So when you're thinking about some of the things that you've done, what do you have as far as best practices or solutions that you found that really work for you when you're, taking all of this data? Because a lot of time data for a lot of people is really scary. They don't want to, they're not a researcher necessarily. Like for me, I got my doctorate. I totally get it. I'm analytical. I'm in that, I'm in the deep end. Right. And a lot of people just don't go there. They're a content creator because they're creative, they want to do that whole thing. But then how do you pull in that other side, that analytical side, to really be able to say, okay, well, if I create this magnificent piece, does that really address my outcomes? Like, is it going to hit the notations that I need it to hit? What are some best practices for people who are not data driven, but really are creators?
Well, I think the misconception is that data is sort of numbers, right? And that it's like very dry to look at. The challenge, I think, is once you get better at looking at the numbers, the story actually pops out right at you. So you can see when, for example, if I'm looking at my music dashboards back in the day when I was in the music business, and I would be able to see something, there's a static line and then there's a pop-up somewhere, or there's a growth that increases over time. That's the story that I have to then, why is that happening? What did we do in that market? What was the feedback? Did we have a promotion that I don't know about? Do we have a promotion I did actually put in place and it's working? And then the other piece of it is that data isn't actually just about numbers. So data for you, if you're a content creator, what is your community saying? What are they reacting to? What is their feedback? Who else are they following? That's all data and insights. That gives you the opportunity to learn about what it is they care about and then be able to make content to speak to that.
Well, so what do you see as one of the things that is kind of a key to creating a winning partnership? Because you are creating these, campaigns and whatnot for brands or products. But what is the key to having that great working relationship, or even knowing like, I really work well with these types of brands?
Well, I think the most successful partnerships I've had have really been around great communication and transparency. So being able to, if you're late on a deadline, tell them that you're going to be late and tell them why. You'll find that if you're ahead of it, it's so much better than you sort of trying to scramble last minute or squeeze it in under the finish line at the end, because then you might even get the response of like, that's okay, Monday's fine. So communication is key. Transparency as well. Like, I'm having difficulty doing something, or, you always want to protect your team. So if there's some sort of hiccup internally, you want to make sure that that's not the message you're sending, but rather we have to get a couple things in line, just communicate clearly and just be honest about what's going on. And I think you get a lot of leeway from clients for that. And the same on the flip side of some positive stuff. If things are going well, tell them why, tell them how, tell them what happened. Let them share in the joy, and what I've also found works really well is your point person, whether it's the manager of an artist or your client within the company that you're working for. If you can see those good bits of information to them so that they can just turn it around and tell their team, it's just going to help their cause. It's going to make your client look great because they know exactly what's going on. They're getting updated frequently as to, the good things that are happening. And it builds trust as well, which is obviously one of the most important things.
Exactly. Well, so I know that obviously, people have been in your life as far as coming before you in different positions, but do you have a mentor that you reach out to or that you've worked with, or do you mentor other people?
Well, I've been lucky that I haven't had a mentor per se, but I've had a lot of people along the way who have helped me, have guided me. And then I always look for people who are really good at something and try to understand how it is that they do that, and how I could sort of strengthen my skills to do that. And that's been from the very beginning. And I think for women, I often, especially in the music business, it's so male dominated, was look to women to see who I could how do they get to their position? I realized early on that there's this myth that women need to be ball busters to sort of make it to the top. So right. I would look for women that were sort of more, I realized that's not me. I'm not going to be that sort of ballsy, brash woman. And I don't think a lot of women really gravitate towards that. If you're that way, then that's awesome. That style works for you. But I would look to more sort of, how does someone who's more soft-spoken actually still command themselves with authority? And just sort of pieces from that from women that I respected and admired. And the same for the men I've worked with who take time to mentor people. And I don't think it's sort of always as formal as you're being mentored now, but right. Someone who just takes the time to speak to you and work through problems and stuff with you. And that's something that's very passionate. I care passionately about in mentoring younger staff that I work with that are on my team. Just taking a moment to check in with how they feel when I see them do something, because the benefit of experience is that you can see those red flags way further down the road, right?
Exactly.
So you can sort of get ahead of it to help navigate, this may happen. If that happens, what would you do? Okay, my recommendation is this or that. Sort of just hold their hand a little bit until they gain the confidence to run themselves.
Nice. Well, so what is something that you've seen be the biggest change since the beginning of your career?
I mean, in the music business, it was the advent of streaming for sure. And then even just in the last few months, it's the advent of touchless payments and curbside pickup. And, so I'd say over the course of my career, it was really streaming coming to play, and just actually real time watching the music business transition from CDs to streaming. Which I'd only read about in the transition from records to CDs, etc.
Right.
So this time I was living through one of those transitions. And then now in the last year, it's been really amazing how quickly, consumer behavior changes slowly over time, except when there's a global pandemic. And everybody needs to now be able to, and wants to, not have to, pull out their credit card and touch a bunch of buttons to pay for something. So Google sign up, Google Pay, Apple Pay, etc. Being able to shop online, curbside pickup, all of those things I just mentioned. So that's been pretty amazing actually to work with our clients to really push forcefully ahead during the last couple of months to get them to a place where they can actually sustain their business given all these new tools. And customers are coming along because they want that too.
Exactly. Well, so tell our listeners just something very interesting. It could be funny, it could be terrifying, it could be inspiring, of one of the projects that you've been working on, whether it's at the particular place that you work right now or even prior companies, where it was just one of those stories that you took with you that you can tell our listeners. It can be terrifying if you want. But working in the music business, I was so lucky that there were these moments where I was like, wow, this is my life. And there was one moment in particular, because I didn't put too much thought into this. I thought I'm just going to go with the first thing that pops into my head. And it was Lollapalooza a couple of years ago, and Eminem was headlining, and they cleared out the whole backstage. So backstage, there's often the people in the business, artists, etc.
but they cleared it all out. It's Eminem. And somehow my friend and I knew the tour manager for another major artist, and he like knew the guys. And so we were backstage when they cleared everybody out. Mm-hmm. So I had this moment where I was standing with one of my very good friends watching Eminem, the only people backstage, in front of like thousands and thousands of people. Mm-hmm. And I just remember like, wow. And I wouldn't even say I was like a huge Eminem fan, but once I saw him perform live that close, I mean, it was really incredible, his energy, and you understand why he's the artist he is. So that was just like a, you know, I just thought of that moment popped in. And then the other time I served Mick Jagger tea, and that was pretty cool.
Does he like it a certain way, or?
I don't even remember that, because I was just like, wow, my dad would flip out right now. But I was working on a soundtrack for Road to Exile, which is a documentary that they had done. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is so surreal. Wow. So like moments like that where you're sort of like, oh, okay. So I still look for those moments. I mean, even now making content for brands, there's things that I always try to find things that excite me, because if I can find things that excite me, I know that I'll be able to connect with whoever we're trying to sell to in an authentic way, you know?
Exactly. Well, so I have to ask you, because you've been in certain analytical conversations. So what is the one thing that every content strategist, the metric that we should all be looking for that matters the most? Because everybody tells me something different. So I'm asking everyone, what is it? Is it the shares? Is it the likes? Is it the, the engagement, the posts, the comments? Like, what is the one that matters the most right now?
I mean, I would never, ever put myself in it's the one thing that matters box, to be honest. I'm always about the holistic picture.
Nice.
I think it matters about, like, of course, how many followers you have, but engagement's always been important. Shares are super important. What are people talking about when they talk to you? So I think you have to look at that picture holistically, and that's the way you find the things that you're missing if you just look at one analytical point. The cumulative picture is what tells you a story. And I think one of the things is sort of developing your system of how you start to look at the data. So I think if you're an avid content creator and you're churning out stuff every day, make sure once a week you're having that time where you can just sit and look at what happened for the week. Often week over week stats are pretty interesting, so you can see what moved the needle. But look at everything, and then the more you know and understand about where your engagement, shares, likes, etc. are, then you'll start to be able to identify when there's like an uptick or a bump or something unusual, and then jump on that to see how can you amplify whatever that thing is.
Exactly.
So I think the holistic approach, you have to look at everything.
Well, so my last question for you, I'm so excited that you decided to join us, because this is so, if you're listening to this, I feel like you just need to like soak up, absorb everything that she is talking about. And this, my last question is, who is one of your favorite people to work with, and why? It could be a celebrity, it could be a business leader, it could be your mom. Who is one of your favorite people to work with?
I mean, look, I've worked with Diplo, musical creative genius. What I loved about him is that he didn't really ever put himself in a box. He was super, super willing to try different things. There was always like, oh, it's house music, now it's country music, then now it's, he would be really, really generous with up and coming artists or unproven talent. He's fearless to work with those guys. So that was awesome. But then on the business side, I've worked with a number of people who I feel really challenge what the status quo is. And it's not to say that they're doing anything really radical, but they're just able to look at something a different way, to try to create something different and then have the guts to try it. Mm-hmm. Obviously based in some sort of like, I think this is going to work and this is why. Mm-hmm. But those are the leaders that I generally gravitate towards. Like, let's not put ourselves in a box. Like, I'll give you an example. Someone I worked with in the music business, where everyone was like, you don't give away music for free. You absolutely don't do that. Like, you're killing your copyright. You don't do that. And our sort of thought on that in my previous company was, I mean, why not? Let's give it away for free. People are going to get it anyway. So what you're doing now is you're just building a pool of people who love and care about you, and you're going to find your hardcore fans who then will eventually actually not just buy maybe music, or maybe they'll never buy music, but they'll buy tickets, when we go back to live events, they will. Merch will be available, so there's a lot more people to market to. So it was just like a bold stance and something that was an industry norm that they just said, let's try something different. And that's the kind of stuff that I love.
And so as an attachment to that, who would you like to work with? Who's on your bucket list?
I don't know. I signed up for the Alt MBA with Seth Godin because I feel like people really gravitate towards, I've read a couple of his books. I think that would be that wouldn't be working with him obviously, but learning, like I'm really big into learning. And actually that's one thing I would say to people is just, you don't have to pay for courses to do things. There's tons of free stuff online or affordable things. Just go to Coursera or your local university or, so always update your skills and never stop learning. But, I'm sort of going into, because I was in the music business and there were tons of people that I got to work with that were, really big managers or executives. I'm grateful for those experiences. And now I'm sort of pivoted a little bit to brand side. So I'm sort of learning and meeting a bunch of new and different people. So that is interesting, and still trying to figure out, who I'm sure over time, you get to work with a lot of different people. So I look forward to that.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for lending us all of your knowledge on Sweet Bytes with Sandra, and make sure to hop over to Extra Byte where we are going. She's been very, very gracious in giving us her time, and we're going to ask her a few more questions for Extra Byte. So we'll be back after this. Tune in every Thursday to satisfy your entrepreneurial sweet tooth with me, Sandra Colton-Medici, on Sweet Bytes with Sandra. Follow Sweet Bytes with Sandra on Instagram at Sweet Bytes with Sandra Podcast. You can also follow my personal profile at Sandra Colton-Medici. And please join our group on Facebook. It's facebook.com/groups/Sweet Bytes with Sandra. And all the time, Bytes is spelled BYTES.